Cell membrane. Cell membrane is thin, elastic and semi-permeable, which protect the cell. The cell membrane is thin, elastic and semi-permeable. Semi-permeable means that it will allow only the certain molecules to pass in the cell. The composition of cell membrane is lipids, protein and some amount of carbohydrates. So, a cell membrane is thin, elastic and semi-permeable, and its composition is lipids, protein and carbohydrates. Okay, is the cell composed of lipids, proteins and carbohydrates? Now, what are the two lipids from which the cell membrane composed? So, the lipids are of two types, the phospholipid and the sterol. The sterol are usually the cholesterol. So, the cell membrane is composed of two forms of lipids, the phospholipids and the cholesterol. The phospholipids and the cholesterols forms lipid layer, while the proteins are embedded in it and some amount of carbohydrates are also present. Now, what is the function of the cell membrane? So, the first and important function of the cell membrane is the protection. Means that the cell membrane protects the cell from the outside environment. It keeps the cell separate from the outside environment by protecting it. It also regulates the cell. How it regulates the cell? That it will allow only those molecules which are favorable for the cell and will not allow those molecules which are not favorable for the cell. So this is called the regulation of the cell. So it regulates the cell. The third function is it maintains the internal composition of the cell. As this layer is present outside of the cell, so it will protect the cell from the injury from the toxic materials which are passing in the cell. So it will help the cell to maintain its internal composition. Now, some metabolic activities also take place through the cell membrane. Means that some metabolic chemical reaction will also take place through a cell membrane. Now another important function is providing communication through signaling. So the cell membrane play an important role to provide communication with the other cell through signaling. Again, a cell membrane is thin, elastic, semi-permeable, means that allows certain molecules to pass in. The composition of the cell membrane is lipids, proteins and some amounts of carbohydrates. The lipids are of two types which makes the cell membrane, that are the phospholipids and the sterols mean the cholesterol. The function of the cell membrane is provide protection to the cell, keep the cell separate from the outside environment, regulation of the cell, maintain the internal composition of the cell. Some metabolic activities also take place through the cell membrane and it provides communication signaling with the other cell. Now, an important fun fact about the cell membrane. The cell membrane contains 50 atoms. So, the thickness of one cell membrane is 5 nanometer. Thank you.